Welcome to episode 3 of the Blacktown Football Hour podcast. My name is Mark DePoli, delighted to be back for another episode, of course. In tonight's episode, we have a pre-match of the round interview for our Deploy PL1 that starts this weekend here at Blacktown Football Park. There were some pretty choice words from our 5 brand new guests who featured on the podcast regarding the teams that they will be versing this weekend as we get underway in the PL1 for 2023. I can reveal it is Doonside Hawks who here host Ropes Crossing Strikers. So get excited for that one, 6 p.m. Saturday night. It's going to be real fun. But until then, thank you very much for joining us here again. This was a bit of a hit last year, so we're also going to do some predictions on the top 5 European leagues, the upcoming Socceroos friendlies against Ecuador, and the Champions League run into the final as well. Stick around, that's happening at the end of the episode. But before all of that, we're going to give a quick analysis and recap of our first match of the round of the year. Something I'm going to do this year, put on a bit of my coaching hat, not that I'm qualified to give any analysis in that way. But we're going to keep it try and keep it short and sweet, around 2 minutes, short and snappy. But first, cue the intro music. Polonia hosted Oakville on a blistering hot Saturday afternoon at Blacktown Football Park. Right off the bat, the first question on everyone's lips was how good were Polonia going to be? They made some real positive early chances in what was an end-to-end game, and on 9 minutes Michael Cullen found himself bearing down on goal. He then attempted to round the young Jack Mills in net, who was able to kick it away just in time though. It was actually the 3 Cullen boys who proved to be the most difficult to stop looking up down that left-hand flank the entire game. Shukuru Melenya's wonderful free kick delivery should have left Liam Sinclair with a debut goal on 14 minutes, but the striker put it wide. 6 minutes before half-time, return of the Cullens, with Michael this time finding David, who eventually took the ball from the goalkeeper and finished it into the bottom corner, but the flag was raised. Offside it was. Good work though by Oakville to hold their line under duress. With an offside given against Polonia, 13 minutes after the restart, Kian Rosa rose the highest to clear the forward ball. Leaping over Liam Sinclair, who was no slouch when it comes to jumping off the ground. Completely unexpecting of it, Aaron Klahesi and Sebastian Lukowski were then unable to intercept it before it bounces right between them, which left the pacey Adrian Leterre to just run onto the loose ball, which was already headed with perfect momentum, to which he then dinked over the goalkeeper. Now, the point of this part of the podcast is to perhaps analyse where a game is won and lost and how to perhaps prevent a goal next time in the same situation, but the reality is that this was a pretty freakish goal. A millimetre perfect header from Kian Rosa and a great finish by Leterre. There's not much Oakville could really do. For the equaliser on 83 minutes though, we can talk a little bit more about that. The former Pons Championship winner Jacob Moiser, who was usually a very, very handy progressive passer from the backline, tried to find Ace Palugadu, and Liam Sinclair really made amends for the mistake when he didn't win the ball in the air for the first goal, when he then intercepted this, and then the 1-2 between Mifsud and Shabani was absolutely class, with the former being just experienced enough to know that when he felt a tug on the back of his jersey, he had to go down to the ground. For Moiser, a couple of moments he will want to forget, but even still, it took some real telepathical magic for Oakville to break into the box the way they did, and in the end, a really nice penalty to tie it up. Fatigue both mentally and physically for Polonia in conceding that goal. A new squad coming together, so it was understandable, but next time, instead of appealing for offside, which I know is just a natural instinct as a centre-back, use the raised arm to perhaps foul Shabani next time before he has the chance to do what he did, cop the yellow card, and you stay 1-0 up with 5 minutes to go in the game. But hey, I'm just a commentator at the end of the day. If you like this segment, please do leave a like on the video. I'm sure we can do one every week from now on. Into our results from around the grounds, our BDSFA AYL boys went away to Nepean, 6-2 win for the 13s, 6-1 win for the 14s, and a 1-1 with the 15s. That's the only results that I can find on Dribble, unfortunately. In the Australia Cup, by the way, let's just stop for a second. The AYL boys, smashing it. Smashing it. I'm really proud of you guys. You'll be on the podcast soon, don't worry. In the Australia Cup, Workers lost 2-0 in extra time to Macquarie Dragons. Doonside conceded in the 90th minute to make it 1-1, and then scored in the 92nd minute, 2 minutes later, to win 2-1. What an incredible game. I was at the Quakers Hill Juniors home ground as they smashed Marrickville 7-1. I was there for the last 20 minutes or so. Great stuff from the Quakers community to be there in numbers. Awesome work, guys. Marion were winning but conceded 2 late goals to Waverley Old Boys 2-1. And that wraps it up for the Cup. Except we should talk about Spartans. 4-2 winners over Camden Tigers as they progress through the preliminary rounds. Let's see who they have up next when the draw comes out soon. The Spartans girls were here at home to Olympic. The 14s, 3-0 winners. The 15s, 8-0 winners. The 16s, 5-0 winners. The 18s, 5-1 winners. Reserve grade were tied at a stalemate, and the first grade narrowly lost 1-0. Fantastic stuff from the youth in particular. Just, as per usual, wonderful against tough opposition. The boys now, the 13s tied 1-1, and then it got worse. The 14s lost 3-2, the 15s lost 1-0, the 16s lost 2-1, the 18s lost 4-1, the 20s lost 3-0, and first grade lost narrowly 2-1. A difficult day in truth. It started with the best result of the day for us. Pretty big contrast between Saturday and Sunday's results, that's for sure. Right, now, before we head into the interviews, this is your reminder to please schedule a time to be at Foreman Reserve, that is Glenwood Redbacks home ground, to have a free heart health checkup. Of course, as we talked about in episode 1, schedule that into your day around your game on round 1. Please do that. Right, now that you've done that and put that in your calendar, in your schedule, let's start with the home team for this weekend's match of the round. 3 brand new faces from an otherwise rather familiar team, the Doonside Hawks. Then you'll meet the new captain and new coach of the mighty Ropes Crossing Strikers. I'll see you at the end of the episode. Ahead of our first Deploy Premier League 1 match of the round, which will be happening on Saturday night, 6 p.m. That's just under 48 hours away. I've got the Doonside boys back on the podcast, but 2 new faces in new colours, following on from that pretty cool ins and outs episode last week. I'm joined by Nick Couchy holding the microphone to my right, Jason Eckford directly to my right, and then to my left, Blake Maybury, who you might recognise well from other colours in years gone by. Boys, thanks very much for joining me here. I do appreciate it very much. We're going to start with Nick, who's holding the microphone right now. You came from another one of our BDSFA clubs last year. So why don't you tell me straight off the bat what convinced you to put on the maroon of Doonside this year?
Oh, I had a few mates that played out at Doonside, and obviously they won the league last year, so it's very enticing to come over. But Riverstone just wasn't, I'd like to say that it just wasn't progressing anywhere, and I love the coaches, love the staff there, but it was time for me to move on, so Doonside was my next step.
So we saw that Doonside needed to do their own sort of refreshing this year after a bit of an exodus in playing staff personnel in the off season. So in terms of your position this year, I don't want you to give too much away ahead of round 1. It'd be better if it was toward the end of the season, but round 1 particularly, you were used on the right of a 3-5-2 last year. You were used in the midfield of a 3-man midfield. What have you sort of been handshake promised so far in terms of your actual concrete position this year? Anything in particular?
I've kind of been rotating a little bit, mostly around the midfield, but I'm a utility player. You kind of just put me anywhere and I'll do the job, so yeah.
Good stuff. And one of the things that we noticed about you last year was your work rate. Now, that's something I've seen in summer soccer tournaments in years gone by, obviously back out in the Hills competition as well. But now, finally, in the Blacktown comp, the work rate was really something to behold. And funnily enough, I probably recognise that most in that 3-5-2 that you played on the right-hand side, which was against Ropes. So you guys are playing this weekend. So if you can give me a little throwback to that game, if you do happen to remember it. Do you remember running something like 13 kilometres in that game, or was that just standard for you?
Oh, I don't really think about it. I kind of just do it. But it's good fun. That game I do remember being pretty tough, especially it was at night. It was late. But I can't remember. Did we get the win that game?
You did.
Yeah. So it was a big game. It was a different position for me because I didn't usually play out there. But I really enjoyed it. So it's good.
Jason, we'll pass on to you now. So you're the only one of the two either side of you who are actually part of the championship winning team last year. So I want to talk about from your perspective, and it's good that it's not from one of the Zwero boys because you're sort of an outsider to that and you can give a different opinion. But in terms of the culture and the training, has there been much of a shift, and has it been in a positive direction? Are you seeing that this year this is going to be a team that can really do the same sort of thing and achieve even more this year?
I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Obviously, won the comp last year in first grade, and we'd like to back that up this year. In terms of training, I guess it's trying to replicate what we did last year, but hold each other a bit more accountable at training and everything like that. If someone's not putting in a shift or something even at training, because as you all know, what you do at training shows off in the game. So that's probably been one of the big things about pushing early this year and stuff like that. Obviously, still in trials and with the comp starting this weekend and everything. So we'll see how we go.
Now, you've got the rather challenging goal of replacing a certain Jamison Hinwood, who, by the way, if you happen to be watching, I saw you leading the chance for Parramatta in one of the wins that you got most recently, so good on you for doing well out in the NPL world. But the player and coach voted goalkeeper of the year, and someone who, from the naked eye test, you could tell was a great player, and had come on in leaps and bounds from the year before as well. So you've got the role of stepping into those boots or putting your hands in those gloves this year. So how would you say you've gone so far with that, and have you felt the encouragement from the supporting staff to not be like, oh, I'm not being replaced, I'm stepping up and it's my time to shine now?
Yeah, and that's something that Glenn, our coach, definitely sort of installed in me is, you're good enough for this position and everything like that. It's not like you're replacing Jamo. You are stepping up and fulfilling that role and everything like that. Obviously, losing Jamo is a big loss and everything like that, as you said, being goalkeeper of the year in Blacktown last year and everything like that, and moving on to to a higher grade and everything like that. But I'm confident in my own abilities and stuff like that, and I guess watching him and I guess learning under him for the last sort of season and a half as well has definitely sort of helped me out and everything like that. And as I said before, sort of coaching staff and everything like that, and captain and playing group have all sort of got the backing behind me and everything like that as well. So I feel pretty good about it.
Good. And my final question for the moment is just about sort of your goalkeeping style. It's never really a question I've asked before, but we don't usually get goalkeepers on the podcast. So Jaden told me you were one of the best goalkeepers he come up against in terms of one-on-ones with the striker. So talk to me a little bit about how you sort of approach that and what makes you stand out in that sort of facet of your play.
For me, I guess it's looking the way, for strikers coming through. I mean, all the pressure's on them to be able to score. It's the same when you look in penalty shootouts and stuff. As a goalkeeper, it's sort of, you've got nothing to lose really. So it's kind of just giving your all, throwing yourself at it. When a striker or someone is, I guess, throwing goal and things like that, you're expected to score. So sometimes you do have those nerves, and so sometimes you can give away where you are going on the field and everything like that. It's just something you kind of back yourself in, and try time and time again through training and instinct and stuff like that. Sometimes you can pick up a few times and everything like that. And obviously, what you see, in your good enough players in training and stuff like that, sometimes you can sort of replicate that on the field and everything as well. So, kind of my perspective a little bit there.
Excellent answer. So, Blake, I'm going to pass on to you now as we swap microphones here. So I'm going to be coming out the listener's other ear now, which is going to be confusing for them. You came from another one of our BDSFA clubs, not quite Rivo, but this time it was Workers. Yep. Workers are a lot of people's favourites to be up there, right up there. Not just in the league this year, but when it comes to the final series, as they came so close against your current club, as you might remember.
Yep.
Talk to me about first of all, sort of how last season ended. Were you even thinking about changing clubs at all? Like when that very last sort of penalty doesn't go in Workers' way. Are you thinking about changes then, or are you? What was the process like around that?
It was more so afterwards. Obviously, during the game, you focus on getting through and hoping for the best. And when that didn't happen, reminiscing on what could have been and whatnot. But definitely after this, in the off season, sort of had a bit of time to myself, and thought I probably didn't get the best out of myself last year, and sort of needed a change, I think, to fulfil that.
So we know players can thrive under different managers and different systems, or with different players around them, not necessarily better coaches or better players or a better system, but just a change. You talked about your personal achievements last year, and I think, considering in 2021, when I first started watching you guys and being the commentator, for example, I think you were really sort of the focal point in a team that was not as good as a Marion or a Pons in 2021. I remember you guys doing wonderful things. And then not so much in 2022 for you personally. So have you felt the Dune side is more shifting to form around your style of play?
Yeah, definitely. Different tactics and different gameplay overall. It just sort of suits me, and so far in the trials, I've got the best out of myself, I've noticed, and hopefully improve from then and keep moving forward.
And how have you been scoring so far? Can you let us in on that?
Oh, I've only played 2 games. I think I've got the same amount of goals as last year, about 6 or so. So, yeah, good start. Hopefully keep going.
Most people would describe you as a striker who has a really good work rate and can press from the front. And I know that in a dune side system that's going to work really well. From zero amounts of coaching license professionally, that's the opinion that I can give. I think the pressing striker in a dune side system will work very well. So have you sort of been told about how that sort of press is going to work this year? And what can you give away
in training we've worked on it a fair bit, and it's just that communication between the boys and everyone working together. So I'm not doing doggies by myself, and vice versa with the other boys. So no one likes doing that. So yeah, it's just working together and keeping the communication up.
And your brother's come along with you as well?
Yeah.
So was that part of the package deal? Is he going to be involved this year?
Yeah, so we had a year off from each other last year and thought, get back together and, hopefully get some results out of it.
Excellent. Talk to me while the microphone's in your hand. We're going to switch our focus solely onto ropes. Talk to me about, for you, the match of the round occasion in years gone by. Obviously, you've not been on the podcast before, so I think it's good to get it from you. And I think strikers will always enjoy a bit more because it's a chance for them to be selfish and show off in the best way that I can possibly put that. So, in terms of the match of the round occasion, is it something that you like to be extra ready for, or is it just another game for you?
Sort of just another game, but I guess you always got in the back of your mind that there might be extra people watching and got to give 110%. And just trying to perform, knowing that there might be a few extra bodies around and, a bit more pressure perhaps. So.
It'll be your match of the round debut as far as I'm concerned. Jason, would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, that's right.
So you're here on the synthetic pitch, so let me ask you, for a goalkeeper and what's tipped to be a pretty dry weekend on a synthetic pitch, are you keen for that one, or do you prefer the grass in particular?
50-50 really. One benefit about playing on a pitch like this is that the bounce is very consistent, which as a keeper is very, very nice. Yes, the ball does come on a lot quicker and everything like that, but if you're able to sort of predict where it's going to be and everything like that as well. And I guess it does make it a bit harder for your midfielders and your defenders on the other team playing those long balls and everything, because they're having to, I guess, take a bit of that weight off it as well. I guess a goalkeeper like myself, I tend to stand quite a long way off my line and everything like that, and generally come out as, I guess, a fifth defender in a way. So that does help there as well, and you can easily sort of come out and clear balls. I feel a lot easier on a field like this compared to some of your grass fields, but I guess the downside is it is a lot harder and everything like that as well. So diving and things like that is, I guess, a downside.
Mm-hmm. And very final question of the day, Nick, I'll ask you. You've matched the round debut for Doonside. You've been involved in 2 prior to this, if my memories does serve me correctly, 1 at River and then 1 at Ropes as well. So taking on Ropes once again, so three match of the rounds, 2 against Ropes. Do you know anything about the team, or can you sort of remember anything about the team in particular? And do you have a sort of approach that you might take to this, or suggest to the players around you about how you might come away with a win?
I'm aware that us boys, I know we're all going to put in 110% effort. That's just our play style. We run hard, we work hard, we work for each other. About Ropes, I do remember them being a little bit grubby, chopping at my legs a little bit. They were a decent team, so I think it's going to be a tough game. Mm-hmm. But we'll do well. We've got a good team around us, so all the boys will hopefully put a few on the net. So yeah.
Fantastic. So, a rejuvenated Doonside team. Thank you to all 3 of these boys for making their Blacktown Football Hour podcast debut. You can catch everything live from about 5 minutes before 6 p.m, so jump on and I'll give you a bit of a context wrap-up about all the signings and changes that were made in the off-season, about everything you need to know from both teams, and then we'll give the starting 11s, and then we'll let the teams walk out for what will be the first of many enthralling games this season in the PL1 for sure. Boys, thanks very much collectively for being here. I really do appreciate it. As I shake all your hands, very much appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have you back on in some capacity, and I wish you best of luck this weekend.
Thank you. Cheers.
Well done.
Beauty.
Killed it. Great answer at the end about them. We'll be here at Blacktown Football Park, but Ropes Crossing will be considered the away side when they face up against Doonside, the champions of the Deploy Premier League 1 from 2022. Now, you might know Ropes did finish just 1 spot outside of the finals after it became a little bit out of their reach, while still mathematically possible with about 6 or 7 rounds to go. they kind of dropped off a little bit in their last couple of games of the season, didn't quite go their way. So it looked like they were quite far from finals, but the reality was they were there and thereabouts the entire way through 2022. And when it just seemed a bit out of reach, it started getting out of reach. But they're here today to turn things around, and for this season to show that they are deserving of finishing in that top 5 spot this year. Of course, even with the 10-team comp, the top 5 will go through to finals. They have a new coach, they have a new captain, they have new players in who are willing to do the hard yards, put in some more effort in training and make that change happen. I'm joined by Steve Knight and Mitch Stead, the coach and the captain of Ropes Crossing Strikers, who will be hoping that they can be the ones who can lead this team into the finals after finishing last in 2021 and then obviously making their huge rise up in 2022. Let's see how far they can go this year. Boys, thanks very much for joining us here. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. So I'll start with the man holding the microphone. They call you Rusty, but we won't need to know about that, even though we might refer to you to that on the old channel when we do go live. But Steve, why don't you talk to me about your career as a coach and how you've led to this point now?
Yeah, I've been coaching for a while now. I started off at Mount Druitt Rangers and was there for 2 or 3 years. Then I moved on to Penrith Rovers. I was there for a short time. Helped out with Sydney FC a little bit in their first year in Youth League, and then joined Hawkesbury, and I've been there for the last 6 years.
Talk to me about your days as a playing career. It's not really a question I ask a lot of our coaches in the Premier League, but from what you told me off camera, there was a couple of names that you've played alongside or against. So why don't we go through your time as a player?
Yeah, long time ago, lifetime ago now. I was in the Nepean Junior, played there, moved on to Sydney United, played there for a while. Played at Mount Pritchard, played at Western Rage, and then finished my playing career at Hawkesbury.
So as far as you were concerned, you were sort of done in the coaching space at the end of last year, and obviously it was a very difficult time out in Hawkesbury due to the weather, which we're starting to experience here right now. Nowhere near as bad, but hopefully it doesn't get any worse. But you thought you were done, and then you get the call from Adam, who is who's been on the podcast before and is obviously the chairman or the head of Ropes, the president of Ropes. So, talk to me about that conversation. Was it sort of out of the blue? Was it something he'd mentioned to you before, or was it?
I've been in contact with Adam and Tim. Well, just in general, because we do have a friendship. We've known each other for a long time outside of the footballing world, believe it or not. And then, we talk about football and stuff all the time, and we're in semi-regular contact. And then, Adam just called me and we had a conversation, and then that led to a meeting with Timmy, and then one thing built on each other, and here we are.
So, as mentioned, by the way, it does pay to have some good friends in the football world, as you can hear. So, as mentioned, you guys had a really poor showing in 2021. 2022 was much better with new faces and new direction, but the problem was a bit of consistency on the pitch. But I think what was making it hard on the pitch was off the pitch. There was a number of coaching changes, and then you had one came in who was going to be fantastic, but unfortunately his tie-ups he was too tied up elsewhere, and it just made things difficult. You seem to be the stable option who's going to come in and bar you losing the first 5 games of the season. I think
no pressure
on you. No, none at all. And not an easy start up against the champions, of course, in round 1, but someone had to do it. At least it wasn't a promoted team, hey?
True.
Slight technical difficulties. We're now inside with slightly worse lighting, but that's what the rain and a bit of incompetence from your host can get you. So, back to where we were. So we've just been busy talking about stability. And just to go back for a second, so there was 3 coaches, or sets of coaches last year at Ropes, and it made things difficult for a bit of consistency. So, were you sort of spoken to about sort of longevity or time you want to spend as a coach in this role? Was that a conversation that came up?
It did indirectly. I'm happy to stay as long as the club will have me, but I think it's all about just building foundations and putting the building blocks in place to have a successful program in the future.
For sure. Now, Mitch, we'll go to you, because I'm pretty sure that at the point we cut off, we hadn't asked you any questions yet. So, and your voice box was working back then outside, so it's still working now to recycle jokes, which you wouldn't have heard because the audio cut out. So let's talk about pre-season from the point of when I last spoke to you outside at the media day. So, how have those what have you sort of learned from those performances, and have you had any real positive results you want to talk home about? Fill me in.
We've definitely learned a lot. We're still just sort of just trying to feel our way through and getting used to the coach, getting used to the playing group we've had. We've had a mix sort of. First grade's always been different every week, and Steve's been getting a lot of the young boys getting some minutes, getting some experience. So it's been more a pre-season of just building that foundation for the season, rather than going out and trying to pump every team 6-0 and get a good ego going into the season. It was more about getting used to everyone's playing styles and adapting to that kind of stuff that we had last year, but we fell a bit short on. But yeah, just getting better at that.
Steve, I'll go back to you again for the moment. Just about 21s as well. Have you sort of been instructed on how to integrate the brand new 21s into this year? Do you have a goal yourself, a certain number you might want to bring through?
It's all based on ability and attitude and performance. If I can get 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 of those boys in the first grade squad, then they've earned it on merit. The way I look at it, we're not just a first grade squad, a reserve grade squad, a 21 squad. We're all part of the club. We're all on the same page. We're all together working for the same goal.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so important to have those 21s come through and just at the first instance exist, because as you would know, you were actually the highest finishing non-Premier League club without 21s. So and the two clubs who come to mind straight away in Oakville and Eastern Creek in the PL2 were, you could consider them as overperformers, but when they did have their squad together in both reserve and first grade, they're a real something a real force to be reckoned with down in the second division. Obviously, Eastern Creek have come up, so for you guys to add that in this year, they've both added it in as well. Funnily enough, it's going to be really helpful for you guys. And as a young club, only formed in 2016, it's not a surprise. So, Mitch, you would have seen from the last 3 years, having finished in a real low down position, and then having finished right on the mid-table point. Obviously, you have goals of wanting to finish in the top 5. Those are the 5 teams that will go through to the final series come September that time. So, have you what sort of things off the pitch, but also on it, have you seen come in leaps and bounds from that sort of first year to now?
It's all on culture, I think, and it's just having that. Obviously, last year was really tough, and I wouldn't put it down to a manager. I wouldn't put it down to anything else. It was just a combination of everything. It was just we were very unlucky with the injuries we had last year. We were very unlucky with not having a 21s team. So and combine that with sort of being a bit unstructured with who was coaching us, then it sort of all culminated into having a overperform on a weekend against some tough competition, and when we had players backing up, having to play 2 games on a weekend, and it was a lot to handle. But this year we've really instilled that culture where we have 3 squads, and we're all playing together, we're all training together, we're all together, we're having bonding sessions together, and we're really pushing that forward, and we're in a lot healthier of a spot this year.
I know Ropes as a club have always been so forward thinking when it comes to squad chemistry, and it's probably one of the reasons why they've had 13 teams go through to grand finals last year. Not just finals, but grand finals. So across those 5 weekend, including Friday days, it's quite a lot of teams. It was the record last year as well, as you would have remember from our podcast segment out there with Adam Hardis, who was the president. Back to Premier League though. In particular with your games against Doonside, let's talk about last year in particular, the bogey team, as was quoted by a certain captain of Doonside, Jaden Zwerb, off camera, but I can reveal that to you now. So he considered you guys a bogey team. They couldn't beat you guys last year. So can you sort of give me a bit of a throwback in terms of the performances in those games and what served you so well?
Well, I can talk for the first game. Second game, not so much because I didn't play, but the first game was a really hard-fought win, and it was a 1-0 result. We played really, really well that game, and I think we shocked a lot of teams at the start, and that game really instilled the potential that we have as a squad, and it's performance like that we're trying to replicate this year. The second game was a lot of to and froing. It was back and forth, but it was still that we still dug deep and fought against a really, really strong side who was showing that they were very strong with the teams they were beating. Doonside impressed so much last year in who they beat and the names that they were beating. More than happy to be a bogey side again this year.
I think what it shows is that you guys were very much capable of beating anyone, but also very much capable of dropping points to anyone as well, which is a blessing and a curse. It gives you plenty of reason and room to give praise to yourselves and amongst yourselves, but also can point out where the flaws are, and sometimes you can play to the level of the team that you're playing, whether they're 10 steps ahead of you or 10 steps behind you, and that's really interesting. So I think what that shows is even when you had your injuries as well, when you were a pretty fit squad, once you can dig your heels in, as you said then, you guys are pretty hard to stop or at least get one over. So I want to talk about the difference in sort of mentality when you're in those games, in those trenches, and you're beating big teams, and then it comes to the end of the season and finals is still mathematically achievable, but it's kind of realistically out of the way. When those last couple of games of the season came through and you guys just collapsed, really, it was a lot of losses back to back. What was the sort of difference between wins over Doonside compared to losing towards the end of the season?
Oh, it was everything. That win over Doonside at the start of the season, it really kicked us off well. We really believed that we could do leaps and bounds in what we've done previously, and throughout the season we did believe that. We every game we were in contest. There was only a few games where it was out of our hands. We just towards the end of the season, like I said, the injuries really let us down, and just having the legs to get through 2 games from a lot of our Resi's boys, it was just tough. It was really tough, and then that's all I can put it to. Yeah.
Mitch, back to Doonside for a second, and being the bogey team, can you actually fill us in on what the secret is to beat the champions?
Honestly, I couldn't really tell you, and if I did know, I wouldn't be telling you either. But when we're going, and we really like to dig our heels in and really grind out a win, and we can do that, and we have the potential to do that every game. It's just
So come this weekend, Steve, I'm aware that you have watched some footage of Doonside. They were the most match of the round featuring or live stream featuring team last year. Lucky them. What have you noticed, and what are you taking into this game that you can reveal to us?
To be honest with you, completely honest, I'm going in with it's a new year, it's a new beginning. Every team's different. We're a different team. We're a different club. What's happened in the past has happened, and credit to all they've achieved. But new beginning. Let's go.
So I heard you were a watcher of a couple of match of the rounds. So was there one that you in particular remember watching, and is there maybe one thing you can sort of let us in on? Or?
I know they're a very physical team, and they do like to press and stuff like that, and I'm familiar with a few of their players from the football world, and history is going back years. But like I said, they've probably changed, we've changed. It's a new year, it's a new start.
I'm going to make to stability for just a second. In terms of style of play, going under 3 sort of coaches or managers can be really difficult for how you might want to set up, who the best starting 11 is, for example. Even though the 2 starting 11s from the 2 games that I covered you guys in were quite similar despite the changes at the helm, as you could say. But in terms of how you guys have started the season in pre-season, and sort of and knowing that you have, again, I'm using that word, stability, consistency, has that been good for the mentality of the squad, Mitch, around you? And do you think that's going to help you out?
Absolutely has. Yeah, with Steve coming in, it's leaps and bounds, more stable as you keep saying. And it's just having the numbers in training as well, and having the bodies around us that can really, we can go as a unit. We can go as 3 squads rather than sort of a ragtag bunch of boys trying to field 2 teams. So yeah.
One thing I want to hear from you before I hear it from the coach is just about style of play. Now, I asked this a bit earlier when we were outside, but just to wrap things up here on the Black Day Football Hour podcast for this segment is just give me a sort of insight as to how you guys think you play, and how would that be helpful against a team like Doonside round 1?
Well, we play some really simple football, and that's what Steve's brought in. It's nothing fancy, it's nothing flashy. It's just play hard, keep it moving, playing simple, and then just creating as many chances as we can.
Mm-hmm. Steve, same question, but from a more sort of technical standpoint, is there a position that you, one of the 11 positions that you like to put particular focus on? Like, is it a Liverpool fullback, or is it an 8 who runs box to box? What kind of things can we hear about your sort of style of play?
My style of play, I just want the whole team, every player in the park, to be in the contest and in the grind and involved and have each other's back and just do the simple things well.
Excellent.
It's pretty hard.
Finally, what's your goal for the season?
My goal, to be successful, and obviously every team wants to make the semis. So.
And for next season?
Build on what we do this year.
Fantastic. So in terms of building on what they did from one year to the next, of course, they finished towards the bottom in PL1. Perhaps you could say they were saved by the COVID year coming in and slicing that down the middle, but then maybe to their own surprise as well, but certainly to the surprise of everyone around them, including the teams, was a mid-table finish and competing for those finals positions all throughout the year. Capable of beating anyone, capable of losing to anyone last year. But let's see what they can do this year. And with Steve at the helm, it looks like there could be some real final time I'll use this word, stability for perhaps seasons to come. So best of luck to you boys, Mitch and Steve. Thanks very much. I really do appreciate it. Great podcast debuts as well. 6 p.m. Be there about 5 minutes before for the pre-game. Match of the round time it is. I think it's going to be a really close game here at BFP on Saturday night between Doonside and Ropes. I think Doonside will be a little bit more fatigued than Ropes will because they've had that game last night in the Australia Cup, so we'll see how they go, but they are a rather fit side, as we do know, and that can really help you when it comes to Community Premier League football, just being the fittest out there. So I'm so excited, so make sure you're there to watch along with us. Right, now I talked about predictions. It's time to predict. With 10 games to go in the Premier League, there are only realistically 2 teams competing for first place, and the rest of the 18 teams are pretty much trying to avoid relegation. I'm kidding, but I'm also kind of not. There's a lot of teams up for relegation this year. Quick fire prediction. Are you ready? Here we go. Arsenal have an 8-point gap on City, but they will lose to City at the Etihad, which will make it close. But both of those 2 teams will drop points in their other remaining games. And in the end, Arsenal will win the league by 1 point. Arsenal fans, I hope you're happy. That's my guess, lads. For relegation, though, I believe it will be the Saints who go marching backwards, unfortunately. Bournemouth, the Cherries won't be feeling so ripe. I've got a bad feeling about Leeds, too, who are out of the relegation zone by about 4 spots, but I think they'll drop back down. I'm not a big fan of how they're going at the moment. I just think that Harry Souttar will also guide less to safety, of course. West Ham are too big to go down, as are Everton, although when you get to La Liga, we'll talk about big teams going down in particular. Nottingham Forest have some decent home form, so I think that could carry them through. Plus, they have a 3-time Champions League winner in their ranks in between the nets. So that's the most important position with one of the best goalkeepers in literally the whole world. I think they'll be okay. Palace and Everton will also be fine. They have good fixtures and good managers who are just recently incoming at the helm. So to win, Arsenal, runners up, City to go down, Southampton, the Cherries, and Leeds. I think Leeds will bounce back up straight away, though. In Spain, it's pretty obvious that Barcelona have wrapped up the league. That Barcelona have wrapped up the league already. No team has ever been behind by as many points as Los Blancos were before last week's El Clasico and then won the league from that position, which was before Barcelona won, and then they won against Real Madrid in the 6-pointer. So history is actually a pretty good indication of what the future is. So that's my prediction. Barcelona will win another league title. Sevilla and Valencia were the clubs in question just before when I said that West Ham were too big to go down. With Jorge Sampaoli out the door, I think Sevilla might just be okay. They might actually start using their really good attacking fullbacks properly. Their World Cup winning fullbacks, of which they have 3 of them properly. And I think they might just be okay to go down. They'll show up their defence with the new incoming manager. However, just before I sort of mentioned who I think will go down, Girona, who've just come up from the 2nd division, led by Cristian Stuani, the Uruguayan. I think they're awesome to watch. So if you do have the chance to watch a game on Optus, watch Girona. I think Espanyol will go down. The Catalan-based club will, in fact, go down. They have the equal 3rd worst defence in the league, and the only 2 teams who have worse defences are the teams in second last, and it's Almeria and Elche. Javicia Kvaratskhelia, Osimhen, Nateo Politano, and rotated with Chucky Lozano, Anguissa in the midfield, Di Lorenzo at the right back, Kim Min-jae at the centre back, Mere in goal. What a team Napoli are. I have such a great feeling around Napoli. They're way ahead now. They're into the 71-point part already. They're going to potentially even get 100 points. Who knows? What a fantastic team. Congrats on your first Serie A title since Maradona was there. Juventus will end up winning the Europa League, by the way, over Manchester United, and despite a 15-point deduction in the league, they'll end up in the Champions League again somehow. So crazy out in Italy. And the 3 in the relegation zone right now, as you can see on the screen, will also be the ones who end up going to Serie B. Into France, I want Marseille to win Ligue 1, but with PSG out of all of their domestic and European cups, that being the Champions League and the French Cup, they've only got the league to focus on, and I just think PSG will win. I also think they're a better team without one of their attacking front 3 in the team, because it means they have more hard runners in midfield, so Messi and Mbappe will be able to really push them on, and they'll eventually breeze past Marseille in second place. If you have the chance to watch, by the way, Lens, as in Lens, I can't wait to potentially see them in the Champions League next year. They have to qualify, though, if they stay in third place. Perhaps they'll overtake Marseille. Great stuff happening outside of that. And also keep an eye on Troy, who are in a relegation battle, but they're led by, of course, the Australian Patrick Kisnorbo. Right. That's our top 5 leagues. Let's head to Australia v Ecuador. I'm desperately hoping to see Nestor Irankunda in a Socceroos jersey before too long, as well as some other A-League players. I think, considering where we are, I think Borrello from this season at the Wanderers would be something of a homecoming for him, considering what he was touted to be as a youngster, and now in his immaculate maturity, he's quite a great player and deserves to have a run around. For Ecuador, though, this is a really good squad. Don't doubt this squad. They're obviously headlined by Brighton's Moises Caicedo, but you also shouldn't turn a blind eye to Fenerbahce's Ener Valencia, the former West Ham striker, Piero Hincapi of the potential Europa League winners Bayer Leverkusen, and also of Brighton, Pervis Estupinian. But we're on home soil. So despite all those great players and the 80 million that was almost spent on Moises Caicedo by the Gunners in January, we'll obviously win a close one 8-0 tomorrow night in Australia. Now, the UCL, the big one, and the final prediction of this episode. Let's do this. No explanation, just quick fire. Are you ready? Real Madrid versus Chelsea. Real Madrid. Man City versus Bayern. Man City. Napoli Milan. Napoli. Benfica Internazionale. Benfica. Real Madrid versus Man City. Man City. And sorry to give some background, but I think this is why Man City will lose the league, because they're going to go through to the Champions League final. So they'll beat Real Madrid. And then you've got Napoli versus Benfica. I think this will be closer than people realise. Napoli. So you've got the team that Pep manages versus the team that Pep said was the best in Europe this year. Man City versus Napoli in the final. Had a long, hard think about this. I still might change my mind. No, I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with it. The fairy tale will live on. Napoli is going to win the league and the UCL. You've heard it here first. Well, maybe not first, but you've certainly heard it on the Blacktown Football Hour podcast now. My tip is Napoli to win the league. I really do believe in the Luciano Spalletti project that's happening there, a manager who's worked his way up from the third tier, having been a player in the third division and retiring there and then going into management. I just think his story is amazing, and it's one that you should look into as well. And I think they're going to all hit their absolute stride. They might never win anything as a group ever again, and I don't think this team will be anywhere near as good next year. I think they'll suffer a bit of burnout and a sense of over-accomplishment, and they'll struggle to remake this success again. But I think this year they're going to take out the league and the UCL, and I think it's going to be a season to absolutely remember. Something similar to sort of Porto back in 2004 under Mourinho. So, that's my predictions. Hope you like them. Let me know what you think about them in the comments. Send me a text and you can disagree with me there. Leave a comment on the Facebook page about what you think is going to happen in the Champions League and all the other leagues around the world that I just talked about. Get keen for the match of the round. Be there for my pre-match discussion. Obviously, the match of the round is more important than the UCL or how the Premier League wraps up, so don't miss that game. Do not miss that first game of the season. Subscribe to the BDSFA. Like this video. Like the Facebook page link that took you here in the first place. And, of course, cue the outro music.